Hello and welcome back to another podcast episode of American Pylon. Will Mehall here, joined by my colleagues James Thomas Fanning IV and Tyler Combs. Glad to be with you here on August 2nd, rainy August 2nd. Took me forever to get to the studio, unfortunately. This is a studio. If you haven't ever watched the video, just imagine Sports Center. It looks a lot like that, but for our viewers, you know what we're talking about.
We're only here another 6 months, so we are looking for sponsors, somebody to take us in.
Yeah, exactly.
We know it'll probably be a step down from how nice this place is. But
and speaking of sponsors, I want to give a shout out to our newest partner, In We Go. We talked a little bit about In We Go on our last episode, and it's clear that they liked what they heard because they decided to partner with us. So just a quick recap, In We Go, an app, $30 a month, gives you unlimited access to events around the city, located in Atlanta, Denver, and Phoenix. And right now, if you plug in the promo code Pylon into the promo box, you'll get $10 off your first month. So thank you to In We Go, and we look forward to seeing you out at some of those events. But moving on to today, we do have Tyler back, and so we want to get into UGA football. And we want to start off talking about the freshman class, the guys that are most likely to make an impact. And I did want to sector this off a little bit and start talking about offense first. Who coming into this year do you think is going to make the biggest impact? Obviously, this is something we're all really excited about. 22 days left until kickoff. What do you guys expect to see? Who is your number one impact player coming in for offense?
For me, it's got to be Zamir White. 5-star running back, number one running back in the country, one of the top few guys in the last 10 years. And to me, running back is just a spot where it's the easiest for a freshman to have an impact, especially behind this offensive line that we're going to be putting on the field. So he is coming back from an ACL injury, but I think once he gets back to full speed, whether that's week 2 or week 4, week 6, whatever, he's definitely not going to redshirt whatever's going on, and I think he could end up being definitely number 2 and even pushing for number 1 snaps by late in the season. So, and it's a long season. People get hurt, so it never hurts to have younger guys that are playing at a high level.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I totally agree. Zamir White, I mean, I think that's the easy pick. That's the low-hanging fruit. Like Jimmy said, it's kind of the
Do your homework, Jim.
It's the that's the position that a freshman can easily step into and really and thrive. Granted, coming off an ACL injury, still an unknown. Everyone on campus and said they seen him in the summer. Puts out the words beast, freak of nature, athlete. They're really impressed with how good he looks coming off of that injury. I'll just, for sake of argument, I'll go with Justin Fields. Maybe not so much from an impact on the field, just because, again, as we touched on a few episodes ago, I don't see him dethroning Jake Fromm for the start, or for starts for that matter. But I guess for more of the way to push Fromm to continue to have that competition in the locker room. I think that's huge for, I know it's off the field. It's not as sexy of an answer, but I think I can see Fields making a huge impact for that locker room, or at least for that the quarterback room, and keeping Fromm honest. Because, I mean, the kid just offers so much, as far as talent. I think he can really push Fromm for that.
Yeah, so. But big shoes to fill in the running back position. I mean, do you think that we're going to see as much star power coming out in that position this year for your pick, Jim?
Say that again. Sorry.
I said big shoes to fill in the running back position. Do you think we're going to do we have as high expectations going in for the freshman, and do you think that he's going to be able to fill those shoes adequately?
As far as the guys that left, no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I don't think that's fair of any freshman that's never taken a snap to say. I mean, Sony and Nick were the best duo in the history of the NCAA. So I feel like that's, an aggressive goal to put on a freshman that's never actually taken a college football snap. So I think that we're going to rely on the quarterback a lot more, which, as we should. I mean, Jake Fromm's really coming into his own. He's really taking control of the team from everything we've heard. So I think we'll pass the ball a lot more. And then, I mean, we've still got DeAndre Swift, who's going in as the number 1 running back.
Yeah,
so
I think another part, aside from the production that we're losing at running back with Sony and Nick moving on, I think there is the element of those two guys meant more to UGA than just yards. The leadership they brought in there. I mean, and it shifts now, to Jimmy's point, more to quarterback, because that's where your leadership is now on the field. Is just you have that second year guy, returning offense, returning system. So I just think that leadership shifts from, I guess I would say, what was the running backs for the offense last year, probably more towards the passing game.
And then some receivers too. Sounds like between Godwin is really stepping up as a vocal leader.
Yeah,
and
Mehal's coming into it.
Mehal's going to make that big step forward.
Riley Ridley came on strong late. So
yeah, we've got a lot of good tight ends coming
back. And
then,
then, Nada's there too. I forget, Nada was 2016.
Yeah, you do forget about Nada. He's going to be a junior, and he was a 5-star. He's number 1 tight end and he scored a touchdown in the SEC championship. When it was there, we gave it to
first
him.
one. That's how we broke it open.
Yeah, it was just like we never really needed to. So this year we might need to a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what about from a defensive position? Who do we see that's going to make a huge impact coming in on that side of the ball?
Sure, yeah. So that was my first pick overall. I guess a little more bold pick, but I was going to go with Brenton Cox simply because on defense, I think that's where we are. I don't want to say devoid of talent because that is long gone from Georgia's worries. Thankfully,
there's plenty of talent.
Yeah, but I just think he has he is an early enrollee, very talented. He was explosive. We're moving him from defensive end to outside linebacker, which I think is where we have a great need. Obviously, we lost Davin Bellamy and Lorenzo Carter, so he steps into an immediate need role, and then he's super talented, early enrollee. The coaches seem to love him from the get-go. And granted, as an offensive player, you're closer to the ball. You get more chances to really take control of a game and score touchdowns and influence how a game goes. But I just think from a defensive standpoint, Brenton Cox can really explode and give us that element of pass rush. Really, last year we weren't high on sack numbers, and I think just having a young guy who's probably not going to be in there so much on running downs, but can just fly around the ball, get there quick, and is that talented and has been there since the winter.
Could be fun to see if if Cox and Anderson can both get on the field together in those third down obvious pass situations, because they're two guys that they're saying. I mean, if you could get them and DeAndre Walker on the field, those are 3. You better hope the other team doesn't run the ball, because that's some serious pass rushers. He might just run right by the running back, but that could be exciting if it's a third and obvious situation. For me, I think that I am going to go ahead and go with Tyson Campbell, 5-star cornerback out of Miami that we signed. He'll have a good shot to replace DeAndre Baker. I think that it may take him a little while to get on the field just because he wasn't an early enrollee, so he's got to learn the system and everything, but from everything they say, his measurables are he's just so much more physically talented than Baker was. And I think a lot of us remember, Baker's last play as a dog, or we'd like to forget, in overtime against Bama in the national
Dominic
championship.
Sanders.
Did I say Baker?
I won't tell
Dominic
DeAndre you're talking about that. We are so sorry, DeAndre, big fan of the show.
Dominic. I apologize. Malcolm Parrish and Dominic Sanders is who I was talking about, not Baker. I'm thinking about the guys that are coming back. But so I would love to see Campbell get on and flourish, and get at least 3 years out of him, because we haven't had 2 true lockdown corners in a long time.
Yeah, I think Campbell, he might be the most exciting just because of the position he plays, and it's been a while since we've seen that big time secondary, that big time corner, that big time safety. Granted, he'll fit in more of that, I guess, that nickel, that star that we're looking to fill, but he is definitely exciting.
They say he could get on the field early in that star position. I guess it's got a little more of a learning curve.
Yeah, I would feel like it has to, because there's so much coverage and run defense going on there. And then we had, is it Devonta Wilson that went down with the injury? He was trending. He was an early enrollee.
He had a chance to start at star before he went down, so that was a bummer. Maybe with the new redshirt rule, which is where we talked about on the first show, but for those that don't know, you can now play in 4 games, any 4 games at any point in the season, and still maintain a redshirt. So he could be a guy that maybe could come back at the tail end of the season.
Yeah,
he'll be pretty far behind the 8 ball at that point, but just for depth or even on special teams or something like that, we could see him worked in late in the season.
So as far as which side of the ball you guys think is going to see the biggest lift from these new incoming players, if you had to pick, which side would you say? Is it going to be offense, or is it going to be the defensive side of the ball? I know this really wasn't on the docket. Yeah. I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
That's a tricky question, because I think the defense overall will take a step back just because we'll miss Roquan so much, but I think that the freshmen will make a bigger impact on the defense just because, you have your star power in Justin Fields and Zamir White. Those guys are going to get to play, but the true meat of this signing class was the offensive line. Yeah. And those guys, it's just so hard to get on the field as a freshman. Yeah. Maybe Sawyer will work his way late in the season at left guard. But I think you just signed a lot more guys on defense that have a chance to make an impact right away.
Yeah, my initial thought when you asked that question was offense, just because how sexy it feels with Justin Fields, Zamir White, Kearis Jackson, Tommy Bush. You have these guys that come in that are weapons and they're talented. But I guess just thinking back through that, I think defense is definitely, because I mean, you guys have the most chance to step in and play immediately. You have a lot of returning starters. You get a lot of veterans on that offense, aside from the guys who left running back.
Yeah, and on offense, continuity is so much more important. So you're not rotating 8 guys on the offensive line depending on packages. But on defense, you play 8, 9, 10 guys along the defensive line over the course of the game. So it's so much easier for somebody to get on the field in a certain situation for a certain package on defense to me.
Yeah, no doubt.
So.
Yeah, and you alluded to it a little bit, but I did want to kind of bring it up again. This is sort of jumping around, but we talked about the 4-game redshirt rule.
Yeah.
And who do you guys think would benefit most from that? Obviously, being able to play in those 4 games and preserve a red shirt. But the other side of it is, if you're good enough to play in those 4 games, I mean, do you want them? Is there a reason to have them use a red shirt in the first place? Yeah,
so I don't see Kirby redshirting anybody just for the sake of giving them an extra year. But he is kind of the king of always finding competitive edge. So to me, it's like the only reason to use someone in 4 games but not all the games is if they're only ready later in the year. So it's a guy that takes most of the year to get his body right, and he plays late in the year to where with the old rule maybe you would have thought about preserving the red shirt. So I think that Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle that we signed, is a guy that could see that. He's a 3-star guy, 6'6", 330. We really don't have anyone with his size, but they say a lot of his weight is not. He's got to shift it around. He's got to get in the weight room and stuff. So he's a guy that's probably was never going to play early on, but as the season goes on and guys wear down, if we could have him play, say, against like Auburn and then the SEC championship and then ideally playoff national championship, he could get 4 games right there and provide valuable depth and have all the way till November to get ready. So to me, a lineman would be the most likely person to do that, just purely because they might not be ready to play till later.
It's funny, when I first read that question that we had drawn up, or even the rule in itself with redshirt, I kind of thought of in the front end. They have to start their first 4 games, and then if it doesn't pan out, okay, now we'll give them the red shirt.
Yeah, that is a good way to look at it.
But I kind of like the way of, okay, we can wait until someone's mentally there, wait until someone's physically there, which is later in the year, play those last 4 games, because we got a few easy ones like Tech.
Because you've got your
and such. But I mean, I'm gonna lean more towards the offensive line, something like that Trey Hill type, or Jamari Sawyer. Everything you hear about him, he's a day 1 starter, but we're so logjam there. But I can see, Sam Pittman's known for mixing and matching.
And they're not afraid
especially
to mix
in
it
practice.
up late in the season.
They are. But we saw it last year with being Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. Against
Solomon
Auburn.
Kinley and what's his name? The other guy,
Kendall
right
Baker.
guard. Baker, thank you.
Yeah, he's a left guard.
Yeah, we were just mixing around even late in the season. So we've shown that Sam Pittman has shown that he is definitely willing to trust a lot of mix and match to get the best 5 out there. So I could see us plugging and playing maybe with some of the easier cupcake games, but definitely spending a few games in those offensive line to really find out those younger guys, can they handle it to mix and match. So come November,
as far as bringing those guys in later in the season, is that something you would want to risk of bringing somebody in who hasn't had that experience right off the bat?
I want to say Ben Cleveland's first game was Auburn.
It was Auburn, yeah. So that, and to me, that's where I might trust that a little more along the defensive line, because it's easier. That's why I said Jordan Davis, because it's easier to cover up a mistake. I mean, if a defensive lineman goes the wrong way, you've got he can just push people back and hopefully make something happen by just blowing stuff up. You've got linebackers and safeties and stuff behind him, so there's a lot more margin for error, in my opinion, on the defensive line than the offensive line. So, but that is a good point. Yeah. You might worry about those younger guys making some mistakes. But I don't. If a guy's played in 4 games at a certain point in the season, I don't see Kirby being like, all right, he's done for the year.
Right.
If he feels like he can help us win a game, even if it's just on special teams, even if it's in garbage time, but he's the true second string guy, so we want him to be ready in case someone gets hurt, Kirby's going to put him in. Yeah. Is my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't see Kirby cutting that off. I don't think he'll ever even assess that 4.
Yeah, I think rule. Kirby basically, like, at the end of the year looks and he's going to say who played less than 4 games. Okay, those guys have an extra year. But I don't think he's really going to take that into account.
I agree. And then I think it also comes down to numbers, I guess. I mean, depending on what our need is next year and such, if he's looking at that and he says, okay, I can't redshirt even though you played 3 years, we need to burn a scholarship so we can get some more guys in here.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I mean, it comes out, I mean, like you said,
Kirby, guys get so much more talented as they get younger that Kirby's not going to have people. I mean, he wants to bring in new blood every year. And
he's strategic about it. Yeah. I mean, it'll be several factors. How well you played, how can you help us win, and then it'll be a numbers game at the end of the year. Because, I mean, college football, as we've seen with this whole Demetrius Robinson thing, it never stops. The numbers numbers are always changing. The moves are always happening, and you're needing space, and guys are leaving. Attrition happens.
Yeah, I don't think Kirby would ever say it, but I'd be willing to bet behind closed doors, him and the coaches have a depth chart numbers 1 through 85 of the scholarship guys.
That's fair.
That if a big time transfer comes available, there's always they know what order guys are on the chopping block. Yeah.
As exciting as it is to talk about the new blood that's coming in and the impact that they're going to make, I also want to talk a little bit about the guys who have a chance to step up and who might have a breakout year at their position. I think you guys had a chance to kind of mull that over. What do you see? Who would be your pick of having a breakout year?
First to me.
Yeah, I can take it. For me, I'm going to take Mehall Hardman on the offensive side of the ball. I think he just made some big strides last year. He had some real bad drops that were real frustrating to watch at the beginning of the year, but he kind of got that under control at the end, kind of culminated with he had 2 touchdowns in the national championship, and one of them was an 80-yard touchdown where he just burned one of Bama's kind of premier corners, that's where Bama kind of hangs their hat on is their secondary. And so now he spent his entire freshman year trying to play cornerback, didn't work out. Only really had one off season to settle into the receiver role, and so he probably was not all the way ready to get into it, but I think he's just so talented, they were just like, forget it, just put him on the field and we'll see what happens. So now that he's got an entire year of his own film to look back on, he's got an entire off season to work on that. He knows what he's good at and what he's not good at. He's a guy that I look to take a major step forward and be a huge offensive weapon for us this year.
I would say don't even stop at offense. Look at special teams. I mean, I think I said it from week 5 or 6. He was the best returner in the country that did not have a touchdown last year. He is so close every time. A couple of shoestring tackles, a couple of good tackles from special teams, from return teams or defense. Hey, David.
Dave on screen again.
Yeah, it's hard to go to pick someone other than Mehall, is because if he had the early drops, turn those around, explosive season, we're going to pass the ball more. You have a hard time seeing another guy who can have more opportunities to really turn on between special teams and being on offense.
He probably dropped somewhere around 200 yards and a couple touchdowns worth of passes.
That'd be a good look. That'd be good to look up. That would be because I know Notre Dame had the big one.
We'll get our intern to pull those numbers for us.
We'll get that. Yeah. I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball again. What first came to mind for me was Richard LeCount. I guess that Kirby has been on him, saying if he can just get the game down mentally, he will explode. And we need that. We're so thin in defense. I guess
they said he made
if
big
he can make that jump,
out like that.
So that to me, I'm just going with that is just because he got called out, by Kirby, which Kirby tends to do to get that motivating factor going, and. we need it.
That's one thing. This is going on a tangent, but I think that's one thing that's so cool about Kirby is everything he does is so calculated. He calls out guys with a purpose, like that. He knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Whereas you saw it with Butch Jones at Tennessee last year, and a guy that actually went to my high school and he played for Tennessee, so I kind of followed his career. But he kind of went on record after saying how frustrated he was with Butch Jones because he was like, if you messed up, he would just lay into you, but it wasn't coaching. It was just like telling you how terrible you are. But it's like, coach, make me better. Tell me what to do. And so I think it's so cool that Kirby just has that such down to his science that everything he does has a purpose.
Sure.
He doesn't just pop off on somebody for no reason because he's mad.
Yeah, everything that comes from Kirby just seems so organized. It has. That's
one thing you hear over and over.
I wish I was like that. I wish I was that. I want to say calculated, but every move he makes. We're seeing it in recruiting and everything. It's just the timing of it and everything just seems so well thought out, so strategic. It's kind of. I know it's kind of scary. It's kind of maniacal. It feels like
I'd rather have that on our side.
It feels like he's playing.
Kirby might be an evil genius.
He literally
is.
Yeah, maybe. I love King Kirby. You can stay as long as you want.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. He's 42.
So we can never stray too far from the recruiting trail. It's something that obviously is continuous throughout college football. And I know that we had kind of sparred a little bit about it off the podcast as far as the politics of the recruiting. And so I wanted to kind of pick your brains and see what you thought as far as, is it ever worth not recruiting a position 1 year to make it easier to sell an elite prospect in years to come? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah, like pass over a guy that is maybe if two guys were the same age, that wait for the one that's a higher rating a year later.
I say no. I say a big fat no, just because, as we kind of said earlier, I guess each year is individual. And you just, with recruiting as wild as it can be, as consistent as we're being, I guess you cannot bank on that. I guess think as a coach, you have to take what's best available then. And then you want to also create that level of that environment of competitiveness. You want to create that environment of we play to a standard, and you come in and you play to that standard. You will play and we will win. You don't want a guy who's going to shy away from competitiveness anyway. I mean, Fromm did it with Eason here. Fields did it with both of those guys here. I mean, we've already created that at Fields. I mean, look at the offensive line logjam that we have.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you want to be bringing in guys that are going to compete like an iron sharpens iron mentality.
Sure.
So obviously you can't. You don't ever want to skip over on a guy that you need in a year just for another guy, but at the same time, like I don't think Kirby wants guys who are gonna shy to say, right. Oh, I want to get on the field the fastest. I don't want to compete. I want to come in to a bad depth chart. I want the guys that are in front of me to be, seniors or whatever. So it's
I would even say let's look at Cal for instance. If Cal would have said, "Oh, we got Demetrius. We got our slot guy. We'll move on to this." Or what if we even said, we have Mehall and Terry. We're just going to let Demetrius Robinson go on.
Yeah,
that's not something you would do. You would, or because we have more to that point. Even we would say we have Jaden Hazelwood and Dominic Blaylock waiting in the wing.
And
you're never going to turn that number down.
I wondered if we would say that for a second when I first saw Demetrius Robertson, but then you see that Kirby's just so ruthless, and he's going to get the 85 best guys on the roster.
So I mean, I guess I
within
don't
reason.
see,
Obviously, you're not going to have like 25 scholarship wide receivers,
right?
But
I mean,
there's certain guys. There's 25, 30 of them a year that are just 5-star guys. That you do what you can to get it.
Yeah.
If 3 different 5-star quarterbacks want to sign at your school, you sign them and then you figure it out.
No doubt. I mean, as far as politics overall in recruiting, definitely there's negative recruiting. Obviously, coaches were in Demetrius Robinson's ear and saying, don't go to Georgia. Look at this. Look at that. Same thing with Justin Fields. Look at the quarterbacks they have on campus. Yeah. That happens. But as far as your own team purposely avoiding or not avoiding, but just looking over a player because what they have next year, what they have on the roster now. I mean, granted, there are needs. Thing, you have greater needs in certain positions.
I mean, you have your roster management that every year you want, X amount of guys at every position and stuff. But you need to bring in guys from every level of defense and offense every year, so you don't want to wait for guys. One thing that I think is funny, just it kind of related to recruiting, is how, for me, I guess because I have a lot of friends that are fans of other teams, but last season it was always like when Kirby was recruiting so well for last cycle, people were always like, well, Georgia's always recruited well. It doesn't really mean anything. Let's see if he can coach. That. And then he coaches us to like the national championship. Right. And then we get the number 1 class. Now we're on our way to maybe the number 1 class next year. And now the narrative has shifted to, Georgia must be cheating. And it's like, well, which one was it?
I love it.
Did we always recruit well under Mark Richt or are we cheating
now?
Like, which one?
Yeah.
So I think that's funny.
To that point, it's so funny too. Is we are not Ole Miss. We are not that team in the West. We're not 4th in the East, coming off of I don't even know what they came off in. What was that class? 2011, 2012.
That was 2013.
We're not coming off a 6 or 7 win season, ringing in 4 or 5 stars a day of National Signing Day.
Yeah,
that isn't happening here. We look at our success on the field.
Well, and I mean, Kirby's always been an elite recruiter. The thing that is people should be, if they want to be surprised about something, be surprised that he settled into the CEO role of being a head coach so quickly. I mean, Kirby was at Alabama for 10 years, pulling 5-star guys, flipping them from Georgia, flipping them from Florida State, flipping them from Auburn. He's always done that. That's what he made his career on. If you want to be surprised about something, be surprised that he's actually an awesome head coach.
That it took us 2 years to get there?
Yeah, I think that's where guys kind of tend to stumble. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, that we didn't get there in the first year.
Yeah. I mean, just can we talk about how exciting it is to be a Georgia fan right now? Because I mean, I know that game in January stung. It stung. It stings me.
Yeah, we were both there.
I mean, I want to say we're moving past it. I don't think you ever get over the sting because you want to win it. Obviously, you didn't get what you went for. So I mean, you don't want to play little brother to, oh well, we made it and we were just happy to be there. But ever since that moment, has Kirby not literally just every move? I don't want to say Kirby, just Georgia in itself has given us something to talk about and to be excited about. Yeah. Every single, like even this weekend.
It's so exciting. I mean, I think that was. I think we'll look back on this in a few years and be like, that was the game where Georgia put the country on notice. It's like, Georgia's here, we're not going anywhere. Yeah. And the big hump we have to get over, which we haven't done it yet, so I don't want to get too cocky, but we got to beat Bama.
Yeah,
I mean, they're the king of college football right now. We got to beat them.
Not even that. We just got to win. We got to win the big one. I don't care who it is. It doesn't have to be Bama. Yeah, we can make it to Atlanta. Beat. I don't care whoever.
I want to beat Bama.
I want to also, but I don't care who it is.
In this era of college football, I feel like if you win a championship without going through Bama, you're going to have like an asterisk next to it. So I think that'd be such, even if it's this year in the SEC championship, like 12-0 Georgia versus 12-0 Alabama, and us beating them, that'd be like
exciting.
a passing of the torch.
No doubt.
from
Totally
Saban.
agree.
Yeah.
I don't want to cheapen any
Saban
kind of
might learn
success
from
we
Urban
have.
Meyer and have a heart attack. Have to spend some time with his family if that
I don't want to
happens.
cheapen though a championship run that we may have if Bama isn't included in that though. We will still enjoy that.
Yeah,
I
no,
agree with the
yeah,
passing of
I
the
will
torch.
still enjoy it.
But I guess when I touch to close on that, I guess it's just Kirby has literally back to how strategic and just I don't know, just how well he's managing all of this. He is literally taking it up a step or taking it up a notch. Every single thing, every single action we do on the field is happening. You're seeing it, and now off the field you're seeing it. So it's no surprise we're seeing this success. I mean, you're seeing the new facilities are being built. Kirby, I don't know if you saw, he tweeted out that thing where he said, "Build it and they will come."
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like saying, like, look, Georgia, if we buy into this as a whole, this if you give me enough to work with, this is what I'm going to give you. So
and it's cool that he got
exciting.
that far in the second year. So we're kind of in a mode right now where like Greg McGarity just needs to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Because Kirby's gonna
I'm
do what
geared
Kirby
up.
wants.
I'm
And it's
geared up.
exciting.
Yeah, we start practice tomorrow, so I'm just that
Got
to
the
me this is the
open
most
practice
exciting
Saturday.
time to be on like recruiting websites and other boards and stuff, because this is when it really kicks into gear as to what's coming down the pipeline this season. So
Yeah, really exciting stuff. Obviously football being back, it's everyone's favorite time of year. And you mentioned that obviously that game was pretty devastating for us, but you guys did have the opportunity to be there in the building.
Yeah. With Ed, with State Farm Ed.
With State Farm Ed.
give Ed a plug real quick.
Freeman from
Yeah.
State Farm. If you're like me and you're accident prone and you're like me, then you probably seek the best coverage. And that's why we all rely on Ed Freeman from State Farm. Ed is, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Ed's definitely the best agent within the state, if not the universe. So if you have a boat, a car, a house, or a life, go to Ed Freeman State Farm.
yeah,
All right.
no doubt.
But yeah, that game was a lot of fun. It was a really cool experience to be there to watch your team in your city. I mean, we took Marta. We took an Uber I guess, to tailgate, and we're sitting there like drinking beer in a parking lot with Ed.
What would you say the worst part was? Getting
let me ask you this.
Getting in or at the end of the game?
Or leaving? I don't know. We could go back and forth.
Let me ask you this, though. Was that the best game you'd ever been to? I mean, I know you come away with a loss.
I tell you what,
But
I mean,
how many-
I didn't
halftime it
go
was.
to the Rose Bowl, so I would say the Rose Bowl definitely. Like, I think if Ed was here, he would say the Rose Bowl is the best game
Yeah.
he's ever been to. Oh, that's a tough question. It's a
I'm gonna say
catch-22.
no. I don't
Yeah.
want not the best game I've ever experienced to be a loss.
I would say the highest energy, the highest I've ever been coming out of a game was the SEC championship, the Auburn game this year.
Yeah,
When
knowing
28-7
we were going.
when
Knowing we were
DeAndre
going.
But
Yeah,
you're
when
talking about the
DeAndre
national championship and seeing your team in town play Bama. Like, to me, again, I didn't go, but to me, that's got to top the list.
It's a
It's
memory
up
I
there.
wouldn't
It's
trade
up there,
for
yeah.
anything. I
I'd
would
spend
spend
the money.
again.
Yeah, I'd do it again.
Exactly. I would do it again, even knowing the outcome. But there's something about.
I mean, but let's say, like, God forbid, it never happened again in our lifetime. I don't see that's going to be a thing, but
Yeah.
you could say that,
Knock on wood
talk to your kids and say, like, I was at that national championship game, like, when we were, in my opinion, neck and neck with Bama, a top college football.
I'll bite.
I don't know.
I'll bite. Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
how about this? I knew when it was that last chance for Bama to win in regulation on fourth quarter. I think by the time it expired,
When they shanked
had
the
that
kid?
field goal. I was yelling my head off. So, I mean, I don't care what happened. Heart attack.
And Tyler's
whatever.
loud. If you've never
I
heard Tyler
was
yell,
yelling.
Tyler is obnoxiously loud.
Despite
so-
what I may
have
sound
that
like
sound
on this
clip
thing.
somewhere.
Yeah, he's at least
We
equal
got
to
a good
7
one
or
from
8
when Tyler
drunk
and I were in
rabid
Portugal.
fans.
I was going nuts, and when he missed that, this is it. This has to be it.
Yeah.
The way we've responded, the way we came out. I mean, just everything
Yeah.
just happened. Even though we got hit in the mouth a few times, we
Talk about a high to a low
Yeah.
between. But
And
yeah,
then-
when he missed
and
that
then
kick,
this.
we were all like, "This is
This is
fate.
it.
This is
it.
destiny."
And I mean, and it came, but they did not lead. Alabama did not lead for 1 second of that game. Not once. They scored a touchdown on the last play, and we walked out of the building, and that was it.
And I believe the Patriots didn't lead for 1 second of that Super Bowl against the Falcons either. So maybe
All right,
it's just
well.
a Georgia sports curse. I don't know.
Jesus.
Jimmy's
This
putting,
is-
Yeah,
this is
putting his
really
own
hard.
neck out there.
Buzzkill, sorry.
This is really hard to recount, but kind of on this same topic in the same vein. Obviously, taking a look at the schedule, it's gonna be pretty exciting. You guys are going to LSU. What is your favorite away game to attend? It doesn't have to be obviously within this season. It could be a specific away game that you attended that you had a great time
well,
at.
I think
it was
Tyler
a big
and I are
win.
both going to agree that Notre Dame was it, so we might want to set that one
Really?
aside.
It was
We talked about
just
that.
such a
It
once
was
in a
just such
lifetime
cool
experience.
Tell me about that.
What an awesome campus first. I mean, to see the historic campus, we've noted how hospitable their fans were and how nice they were. and then to come out with a win. Jake Fromm's first start, the drama leading into that.
Yeah, and the Terry Godwin catch that was that was right in front of us.
If Mehall would have caught that ball at second quarter going into halftime, that would have been that 70-yard bomb.
That was one of his big drops. That really that game wasn't even as close as the score.
I'll tell you what made it fun was everything we were told about Notre Dame fans about how they'll go golf clap. All of their highlights are black and white, which is kind of what's true.
But see, I would also echo that sentiment. Just from me having grown up and watched Notre Dame football, having my dad been there, and then having been in the stadium, I went and saw them play Stanford, and it was like it was more lively in a morgue.
Well, they got up for us. I mean, that's
I'm
what made it fun.
Yeah,
because the
it was
game
pretty high energy, but there were a lot of Georgia fans there.
There were, and that made it fun
awesome.
too. That made it fun.
Really,
how
really
well
cool.
it traveled. I guess to me, I didn't think it was going to be as close of a game as it ended up being, but because it made it that much more, I'll say, hostile. We were giving it to them; they were giving it to us. So it was just kind of it was a fun, unexpected back and forth.
Yeah,
I would say.
Dude, I can't wait for them to come down to Athens.
I can't wait.
We told them, I was like, "Hey, don't expect to be treated as nice." Not us. I think Jimmy touched on it last week.
Good disclaimer.
Yeah.
That we do have some. We have some sidewalk alum. Not that you have to go to Georgia to be a fan, but we have some. We have some barking. Fans that'll definitely welcome you to Athens.
I hope we put our best foot forward there, but
we'll makes me nervous.
I think just them being on campus though is going to be a huge change because again, having been in that environment, and I didn't grow up a big Georgia fan, but when I attended Georgia, I saw there's a massive difference from the way that the SEC does football and tailgating versus the rest of the country. So I think that they're going to get. I don't want to say a rude awakening, but it's going to certainly be eye-opening for them.
Shall I touch on Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech one more time?
I will tell you, though, to close on the Notre Dame piece for our favorite away game, was when Jimmy and I rode in on the bus from Chicago. We turned onto campus, and a local company here had their tailgate set up, and it was just a sea of red tents and red shirts. I got chill bumps just talking about it. When we turned that corner and all their fans saw just the sea of red that had showed up, they were like tapping each other. They were like, look at that, look at that. They were like overwhelmed.
Was mostly Notre Dame, and they were like, "You guys aren't ready for Notre Dame. We're gonna." I mean, it was friendly, but they were John at us and stuff, and then you turn around and it looked like a Georgia home game.
Yeah, you would have thought
got silent.
Yeah, if you would have got knocked out and just dropped there, woke up, you would have thought you were on Georgia's beautiful historic campus in South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah, you would have thought you were like at the IM Fields or something.
It was awesome.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
It was really cool. But do you have ones besides that? Since we've talked about that one at length already.
Away, I would definitely say Vanderbilt. I mean, their stadium was awesome.
Never been.
I'm kidding. Nashville's fun after you go in there and inevitably win versus Vanderbilt. Sorry, David. David had a bad experience.
Bad experience at Vanderbilt.
Well, we
he was
we
there
lost.
when we lost one time.
I mean, I had a great time in Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
I'm really looking forward to Baton Rouge. That'll be fun.
I had a really good time at Clemson, and we ended up losing the
not
game,
USC.
but I believe it was. That was the best part about being in Clemson, that I wasn't in Columbia. But it was cool just because it's right on the Lake Hartwell, and I was in pharmacy school at the time, and a bunch of people from my class all got a lake house. And we actually took a boat to campus to tailgate.
That's cool.
So that was just it was real friendly. That game was a bummer because that was the game where Malcolm Mitchell tore his ACL, celebrating a touchdown in the first quarter. But for me, the fans were pretty friendly. It was fun. It wasn't as fun as the next year when Clemson came and Nick Chubb ran out of his shoe.
Yeah,
and it was kind of Nick
that
Chubb
was
and
awesome.
Sony Michel's coming out party, and Todd Gurley went on his Heisman campaign.
I love going
short.
to Auburn. I do. I mean, going to Auburn's fun.
Auburn.
They are good fans, and that is a friendly tailgate, heated game. It's always a heated game. I feel like.
Yeah.
That's a fun trip to make.
Yeah. Every time I've ever gone to Auburn, it's always we've kind of showed up without a plan and without really anywhere to tailgate or anything. We have like a bunch of beer and a
Those
Kroger
make for the
bag.
best stories though.
And we just find people, and they're just like, yeah, come with us. Like, we got ice, we got beer if you run out of beer, we've got food. I was there one time. They were literally like, "We have tickets. Do you want tickets?" They gave us free tickets.
What game was that?
It was 2012. So Auburn, I think, was like 3.
Oh, that was
6
Gene Chiswick's last year
at that point.
And
Georgia was.
I remember that. I think Keith
game,
Marshall
like,
tore one
41
off
to
for that
0
game.
or
Yeah,
something.
I think I remember that. Yeah, that's what iced it in the third quarter. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So what about adding opponents to the schedule? I mean, if you had like a wish list of teams that you wanted to play, if you could handpick them, I mean,
just for the sake of being able to go to away games.
Yeah, I'd rather travel. I'd rather travel.
Yeah.
I'd rather. Yeah, I mean, you want to have a sexy matchup, but I want to go see.
I would much rather have a home than have like a Chick-fil-A game or a Dallas game or Orlando. Or something.
Okay, so where would you want? Like, what would be your top 3 if you could pick an opponent that you got to travel to. Could be for the stadium, could be for the fan base, could be for the college town, could be for the matchup.
You want to take turns?
Number one immediately is Ohio State.
See, I was going to say Michigan because I feel like
I was going to say Michigan as well.
I feel like
big
just
house.
like the big house to me is more iconic than the horseshoe.
exactly.
The horseshoe. I don't know. Maybe this whole urban thing, but going on in the news right now. But Ohio State is just they're a perennial powerhouse. They've been up there since we've been alive. Michigan really hasn't. So that I don't like. I guess I don't like Harbaugh or Meyer, but
yeah, I don't.
Ohio State
I mean,
comes
I'm
to
not
my
picking
number
them.
one.
I want to beat them.
I'm not picking it because
I would say Michigan. Just to me, big house is more of a name brand.
And I'm going to say number 2, Texas, just to go check it out. I'm going to say number 3. I have no idea. Wisconsin. I've heard Wisconsin is a fun
Madison
game
is supposed to be a really, really
to be
fun
at.
college town.
So those are going to be my top 3.
So yeah, I would. So I'll put Michigan at number 1. I'll try and avoid yours, but I think Texas would be a ton of fun. We're at UCLA in 2025, I think.
Yeah.
Tyler and I've been to the Rose Bowl together, so I'm really looking forward to that. But for games that are not on the books, Oregon would be really cool, just to go out there and see the campus, see the facilities, see everything, and who else we got? I mean,
people say
Oklahoma.
USC, but
USC
the Coliseum
Stadium,
doesn't.
that's the thing.
Well, Will's been to it.
Yeah.
I forgot for
Yeah,
that
it
Rams
is.
game.
Coliseum's a piece of crap.
It is the worst. I went out there a couple. Yeah, I'm about to rant. I went out there a couple years ago. It wasn't for a college
this is
game.
Where people are coming from.
I went to see the Rams play the Bills, right? Which whatever.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of either of those teams. Obviously, you had Todd Gurley,
No doubt.
and we had seats that were like maybe 10 rows up in the end zone. We saw Gurley come out and warm up, so that was pretty cool. But that is a terrible stadium, a terrible venue. We were staying at the time in Orange County. We took an Uber from Orange County to LA to the Coliseum, and I think just to get there, split between me and another person was $90 total. When we decided to leave the game, it was I think $345 one way back
Uber?
for an Uber. So we were like,
So an
"I'm
hour
probably
or
gonna
two for you at work.
pass on that," and then just wait. So that's inevitably what we ended up doing. But yeah, that would not be a stadium that tops my list.
I will say for those, I would want to set it up in probably either Texas or California just for the sake of recruiting, because I think one thing is a lot of teams want to play Georgia because they want to get exposure in the state of Georgia because there's so much talent. So you can argue like Florida State or Miami at least, but you'd want to be in a place that's at least as talent rich as, because they're going to try and get exposure in Georgia and they're going to try and come in and poach recruits recruits.
Yeah.
So I would at least want it to be somewhere where we have a chance to kind of spread our brand.
Punch back.
So,
No doubt.
maybe like Stanford would be cool too.
That would
Palo
be cool.
Alto's a really cool city.
Yeah.
I would say
we have a similar style of play.
I want, and I said it before, I want the Florida game moved to home and home.
Yeah.
I don't like Jacksonville, and I would
Nobody
love for
does.
them to come to us because I would love to give them hell in our own house in Stanford, and I would love to go see Ben Hill Griffin, go to the Swamp, and win in there. That would be fun.
I consider that an away game already.
I mean, it is. I guess
Yeah.
to Jimmy's point, I'm not a fan of. If it's a good matchup, I'll get excited. But I am not a fan of the Chick-fil-A kickoff or the something in Arlington or whatever.
I think what we
call it.
have in Notre Dame is like a lot more exciting.
Yeah,
as far as the home and home.
it's so much cooler to go see that authentic, that their experience, their tailgating, their stadium, interact with their fans, not be a 50-50 affair in some, tourist city.
Yeah, I would say that
Florida could make it like almost a triangle between maybe like Atlanta,
Or rotate,
Jacksonville, or a square, I guess, between two home games and Atlanta and Jacksonville or something. Because I will say going to Georgia, Florida as a Georgia student is one of some of my best memories of my life. I mean, I think that's really an iconic part of being a Georgia student, and that's something you have forever. So
maybe that's Jimmy's favorite away game then.
Maybe we didn't win very much when I when I went in college, but the beach in St. Simons was pretty fun.
Yeah, I would have to echo Jimmy's number one, the Big House, and see a Michigan matchup. I would say maybe Penn State would be
cool.
Would be pretty cool.
It'd be fun to be at Penn State. They tend to do that whiteout for big
Valley.
games, which would be really neat to see.
And I don't know. I mean, I guess the shoe would be kind of cool. I don't know. I don't really have a third one that I'm like, damn, I got to go see.
It probably would have been Notre Dame until a year ago.
Yeah.
But,
Having this discussion really makes me think. You think there's so many blue bloods and rich college programs that are always at the top, and maybe we've named them all. They're always up there. They're always up there. And you think of those as sexy matchups for your own program, and here we are, kind of having the same top three or a similar version of the top three. Not really naming other schools we are dying to go check out or even see UGA play. I mean, they would all be fun to see them play, but I guess as far as traveling, nothing's really
It is pretty narrow at the top as far
Maybe
as
we're spoiled.
Blue Bloods.
Maybe we're yeah.
I think Kirby is going to try and go out and get. He says he wants to have a big Power 5 matchup every year besides Tech.
That doesn't count. Joke by Coke.
Yeah. So, no, I hope he does get us some good games going forward. That'd be exciting.
Yeah. Well, we're going to stray away a little bit from UGA football, but we are going to talk about current college football events. And I don't think we can get away from this episode of the podcast without talking a little bit about the fiasco or the scandal, whatever you want to call it, that is involving Urban Meyer and Ohio State. Certainly a school that's no stranger to scandals. I don't know.
This is a little bit worse than Tattoo-gate, I would argue.
Yeah, there's not much to say as far as the facts are concerned. They are what they are. We have them, right now. Do you guys see any way that he comes away with a job after this? I mean, or ever works in the sport again?
Oh, I think he'll be back just because college football has shown us again and again that if you're a good enough, for better, that could be a totally separate podcast. But if you're a good enough coach, you make your way back into the sport one way or the other. But no, I don't think he survives this with his job. There's just I mean, it may be. So I understand. I don't know. I could see the argument that some people have made that it's like, well, he's not a cop, so the police didn't press charges, so it's not his job to deal with it or anything. But then he went up to the media at Media Day, the Big Ten Media Day, and said, I had no knowledge of that. And 3 days later, we find out he did have knowledge of that.
Sure.
So,
yeah, but is that the same? I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but is that the same thing as the NCAA coming to him and asking him point blank? Because he's talking to reporters. I don't know that necessarily carries the same weight.
Yeah, I mean, it's not against the law. I mean, we're dealing with court of public opinion at this point. Like, I don't think that the NCAA or the law or anything is going to come in and say he's fired. Ohio State is doing their best to save face, especially with the fiasco with the gymnast at Michigan State that just went through.
Right.
I mean, the Big Ten is going to come down hard on this because
this is their third one.
Not a good.
This is their third one with Joe Pa, with Nassar at Michigan State, and now this. To your original question, I think the only way he comes out of his job on this is if he just comes out, admits, I lied, I messed up, I should have reported it. Because there were no charges, I didn't feel that it was needed to be escalated. Still not the right thing morally, and even not in his contract. It even says in that Title IX, and they're not sure if it falls under that, but if there is some kind of allegation to this effect, he still has to report it to his superiors.
Yeah.
So even though charges may not have been made, he still has to report that up,
but
regardless of how he feels. But to answer your question, I guess, to wrap that my long-winded answer up, is the only way he keeps it is if he admits everything, says I did know, I just I lied, I didn't come forward with it. And where was I going with that? I forget.
So,
but I can see him. I see if he'll get a suspension. He won't get fired. I can just say, because there weren't charges pressed, I didn't feel the need to pass it up because they handled that on their own as individuals. So because of that, that's on me. I should have known better. Maybe a 6-game, maybe a year suspension, but keeps his job. That's the only way.
But a couple of things I would say. Didn't that first come around in 2015 with the original issue? So he's
now around in 2009.
Have y'all actually heard the stories?
That coach has been with him since Bowling Green, I believe. I mean, they've been tight for a long. He was definitely at Florida.
But he's referring to a separate instance in the past and saying, like, well, if it wasn't taken care of then he's basically saying, like, well, if it continues to happen, like, it must not be that big of a deal.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think the most damning thing for Urban Meyer is he came out with that zero tolerance policy. He also has a poster or signage in their locker room that says "Treat women with respect" in all caps. So it's a thing they've definitely had to address. It's in the forefront. It's definitely like right there in your face. So
I hope that's not the sign they slap like coming out.
No,
too soon. I think one other way he could keep his job though is, and I don't think it would work, and I don't think it'd be smart, but he could sort of just throw his wife under the bus, and because this is all
not physically, obviously.
We'll
easy.
See. Yeah, but this is all kind of predicated on the fact that there's a text that says, Urban knew he had to know because his wife knows.
Right.
So if he were to say, my wife never, and there was another in the same thread, I believe it said all the coaches' wives knew.
Yeah.
So if he's going to say, basically all the wives knew, but none of them ever said anything to us, and kind of throws his wife under the bus, and everybody agrees to that. But then you're building such a house of cards that if that's not true, all it takes is one person out of, tons of coaches, tons of GAs, tons of wives. I mean, you have dozens of people who all have to commit to this one lie to protect this one guy, and if one guy comes clean, one girl comes clean, it all falls apart.
I mean, to me,
hopefully he's smart enough that if this stuff is true, to just be like, look, I got to come clean and
Right.
take my punishment
Right.
and deal
and
with
then get
it.
a suspension or something. But like to me, even so, I was reading up on it, and they said because charges weren't pressed, and I guess this might be a state by state thing. I'm not sure. But because charges were not pressed, the coach's name was not actually put in the report. So I'm not. To me, I would think naturally, if it goes through any kind of police, then you would think that they would approach Urban and be like, "Hey, here's what's going on. Here's how's." I mean, you think that would at least roll up to the university some way somehow of here's a list of people in your university, because if it happens to students, if students can get kicked out of having 3 strikes or whatever, certainly the same thing happens to people who are responsible for those students and athletes. You just think that would come to Urban in some form or fashion, even if it wasn't through text or through his wife. But
and then that just kind of begs the question, like, how responsible are they for knowing everything that's going on in their program? I mean,
but he does have a reputation of a guy that micromanages. So,
I mean, you can't know everything. I
just
understand, and you can't. I mean, the thing about it is you can't be in charge of everything that happens underneath you. For instance, like my high school coaches are not responsible for my actions now. I understand that, or even then, it comes down to the individual decision. But if something is brought to his attention, if it's brought to their attention,
it is absolutely
I mean, that just makes sense, So I think we need to make it. I don't want to simplify possibly a very complicated situation, but it's like anything else. I think anyone at work or anything with our sports teams growing up, if your coach heard of you doing that, or someone underneath them, then to me it's an easy decision. And if they lie about it, looking too good for Urban.
If I had to bet, I would say Urban will be.
I don't see him keeping his job.
Our next podcast.
Yeah.
If I had to put money on it,
all right,
you got a week there.
Mark it down.
And if all these allegations are true, then good riddance.
Exactly.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. So we're going to move on and go to a little bit of a more lighthearted topic. Tyler, we actually got the chance to address some stuff that was not related to sports whatsoever, but made for fun conversation, and that was best concert you've ever attended or been to. And then I'll let you address that one first, and then we'll talk about the next one. But I want to hear from you, a big concert goer.
Yep.
What it is.
For me, I agree with David. For me, it's how much fun I have at the concert, not so much the artist or the band that is playing, although there are several that I want to see and aim to see, and that makes my decision on who I do go.
Okay, let me stop you there. Who is one band that you've got to see before you die?
Oh gosh, I would have said George Michael, but George, R.I.P. in peace.
I know, that's a bummer.
Sweet Prince.
Tyler was very upset by that.
Yeah, George is my guy.
Guard. I didn't realize you were such a big George.
I'm
Michael
a big
fan.
George Michael
Tyler
fan. Careless
not
Whisper
okay
is
for a
my
couple days
jam.
when that happened.
I don't know that I have one that I must see. That's sad. I know. I'll get back to you on that next podcast. Stay tuned.
Okay, so
keep coming back for more.
Yeah,
what's the best one you've ever seen?
Was my first Luke Bryan. What was it? Farm tour in Athens. That first year he came. I think it was it my junior year or senior year? I can't. What was that?
It was the one David said, right? Where we got to bring the coolers.
That's the one
up?
I talked about.
That
it was y'all's
concert
senior year because I was a junior. It was 2011.
Hell of fun. Just being able to bring your own beer and cooler and standing up, and we just had our group of just everyone standing there, just dancing, hanging out, just all day. That was a fun concert. It was cheap.
Yeah,
the beer was essentially free.
Yeah.
Luke put on a good show. He put the Georgia jersey on and got out there, had a good time, called the dog. Like that was a fun, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say Gurley. Did Gurley get on stage for that one, or was that?
I think you brought Aaron Murray up
or someone. Anyway, but that was that was the most fun concert I've been to, just because of the atmosphere and the cheap beer and being not the wait in line. You're in the middle of a field. You're with all your college buddies. It's it's affordable.
That's pretty much all you need to make a good concert.
I mean,
Jimmy's
what
lost
more
in the
can you
field
ask
somewhere.
for?
Do it.
Sorry.
Jimmy's lost in the field somewhere. Can't find everyone else.
Doing my own thing.
Yeah. Sorry, it wasn't Drake or anything sexy or exciting or what the kids are going to like.
No,
nowadays.
that's a good thing.
But it was
That's a
Luke
good
in his
thing.
prime for the record.
Luke was in his prime in 2011.
Yeah.
That was before he sold out.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then we also got the chance to address the best and worst fan bases in different sports. I think obviously best is University of Georgia, so I don't know we need to harp too hot on
Titans for NFL, Preds for hockey.
Okay.
I don't know. The
I can see
Las
that.
Vegas Golden Knights. I was impressed.
they showed
that
out.
is a solid.
I was
fan base.
impressed with them. When I went to
really
Vegas,
did
they were
buy
all
in.
about their
That
Knights.
was pretty cool.
Granted, they were in the playoff. They were in
I was
the
going to say,
finals,
I'll see how
but-
much of a fans they are.
And I was a homer
5
pick,
years.
but the Atlanta United.
Yeah, I was
is
going to
hell
say,
of
give them
fan
a shout
base.
out,
Yeah.
or us
Those,
a shout out.
those games are
'cause-
fun.
Yeah,
They're
it's-
high
it's-
energy the entire time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that a game that literally could end 0-0 or 1-1, or the Seattle game that we were at after the World Cup was super high energy the entire time.
It was fun.
So,
I mean, they pack it out too, and it's a pain in the ass to get there on MARTA and to leave on MARTA. So I mean, that goes to show you. I mean, it's just it's a fun time. They pack the house.
The worst college football.
Worst fans in my experience was Clemson. It was back in my darker days when I was an Auburn fan. Auburn was just coming off the 2010 national championship. 2011, they were up at half 21-7 on Clemson, I think was the score, and Clemson came out and won that game. And God, I had so much stuff thrown at me.
I'm sure.
He yelled at me. I mean, cussed at me. I mean, walking out of that stadium was brutal.
What'd you have thrown at you?
Did you have chicken
Coke,
wings thrown
I had
at you?
everything. I had food, drinks,
Like, you were
water bottles.
wet?
I had stuff thrown at me. Adam was with me. It was
God.
it was brutal.
Old school 80s Georgia fan Jack Tidwell one time told me that he was at Clemson and they threw chicken wings at him.
Okay, yeah, I
So
don't
I'll
remember
never
chicken
go
wings,
back.
but yeah, they
he said
just
he was walking out of the stadium after.
To me-
We were coming off the national championship.
okay. Yeah, it was
Yeah, it was
1981.
1981.
There you go.
And
they can't
they
handle
threw
it.
chicken wings at him. He said he'll never go
To
back to
me,
Clemson.
it was just that was their coming out party for I remember Dabo got in the field acting like he never won a game before. Granted, Dabo is a great coach. Obviously, he's got his program there year in and year out, so you can't knock him. But you can just tell it was their fans. We beat the champs. We got Dabo. We got the guy we want. And it's just I don't know. I couldn't stand it because to me Clemson was a nobody still. They, we were riding high. I'll say we. Auburn was riding high at that time. Sorry, I know, but it was just that one got under my skin, and I just since then I've had a distaste for going to a Clemson game. Still like going to the town like Lake Hartwell, but that was my worst experience as a fan in college football.
Yeah, I've only had the chance to go to Death Valley once.
It's a good looking stadium.
You were there rooting for Clemson though, right? You were with.
Yeah, I mean, I was there. I was there
guy, right?
as an occupant of a seat, I guess.
Who would they play?
What game was it?
Louisville, Lamar Jackson.
Oh,
That was the year they
fun.
won
You got to
the
see a Heisman
championship.
Trophy winner.
Yeah, that's
pretty
fun to
cool.
watch.
So it was cool. I mean, I was in like dead last nosebleed seats.
Sure.
But I mean, it was a cool environment.
That stadium is steep.
It is
Yeah.
also
You're in
I mean,
bad seats.
I like
there.
that
You have some
stadium.
Bad seats.
It's right there on the river. It looks good. I will say also to add to this, and this is not sour grapes, kid you not. We said it before the game kicked off. They claim that they're run out down that hill with their little balloons.
Oh my
It's the most
God.
exciting
Totally.
22
The
seconds
most
in sports.
Yeah, I've heard
disappointing.
that too.
22
Yeah,
seconds in
disappointing. That
sports.
was the most anticlimactic
First
thing. I
time
was
I ever
excited
saw
to
that,
see
I
it,
was like, are you
and
kidding
that
me?
happened, and I was like, that was pathetic.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
totally
way
agree with
overblown.
that.
I mean, it was a cool environment. It's nice to be there when you don't have a dog in the fight, and you're not living and dying on every play, and just to be able
Sure.
to take in the environment. I will say,
Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Producer Dave.
I will say it was probably one of the loudest stadiums I've ever been in, if I'm honest.
I'm
That's
excited
funny.
to see LSU's Death Valley this year. See how loud they get. It is, no, they haven't named kickoff. South Carolina's a 3:30 game, so
Yeah.
we don't know.
Our
about
first
LSU,
few
so
are
if it's a night
prime
game,
times, yeah.
It's a night game. We'll see.
I will
Get
say,
pretty
speaking
rowdy
to
there.
Death Valley's intensity and
Clemson
how
or
loud it gets.
LSU?
Oh yeah, the fake Death Valley, I
Death
guess.
Valley.
Yeah, Clemson. I was actually with our sponsor Ed Freeman at State Farm on one of his rewards trip in NYC last week, which is why I was not present. Anyway,
It's well
one of the
documented
gentlemen
on episode 4.
One of the gentlemen and fellow agents that was with us played football for Florida State, and he also said that Clemson was the loudest stadium he had played in. He said that was the most intimidating field he had been on.
That's one thing
From
I'd like
Florida
to see
State.
Georgia get better at in the future. I don't know if it has to do with our alumni or the music
I
we
think it
play or
has to
whatever.
do with the 100 bars outside.
Yeah,
the stadium.
downtown's
that's
too
true.
close.
I don't. Yeah,
They need to shut
I
that
don't
down.
feel like our
You say
stadium
that,
is
but we still pack it
particularly-
out. That stadium
We
is
do,
still
but
packed.
For
If
whatever
it's a
reason,
noon
it
game,
just doesn't feel. But the LSU 2013 game,
Everyone
I don't know if
refers to that one.
That was
Yeah.
the loudest I've heard the stadium. If we could do that on a consistent basis, I think it'd be pretty exciting.
Why is that? You think, what can we do? Y'all think as fans?
I think it's honestly, I don't know. I think it's a lot of people leaving, to be honest. I mean, let's say even if it is a throwaway game, like I could understand, like, if we're way up, but I just don't see
I think
the
we just have
appeal
a
of
lot of older alumni. I mean, the student section's only 15%.
But wouldn't every other? I mean, it might. Well,
But that's
Yeah.
sad to
Yeah.
look up and see the fraternity sections that are traditionally, what is that, in the
300,
300.
like along the.
is that the north side?
that's
North-
the
it's
east
from
end
like
zone.
The 40 to the
Okay.
40. is
So
the
it's
fraternity
just
section.
sad to look
Somewhere.
up there and see that section is cleared out. Like,
Yeah,
I
that
hate
was-
looking on
yeah,
TV and
yep.
seeing that. It just makes us look bad in my sense. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that would love to
But
have
I think
those
a lot of that
seats.
has to do with the music. I wish we would play better music. The music's fun. It's fun to have, like Teenage Wasteland and stuff. That's a
Yeah.
tradition at Georgia, but like they need to, like, I remember the Clemson game, it was Chubb and Sony's freshman year when Gurley was in there playing Weedham boys.
Yeah.
And Gurley was up there with the talent. Everybody was going wild. So I think some of our alumni complain about that and push back against that.
Sure.
But
Hey, man, we've got one of the best bands in the world. Shout out to the Redcoats.
yeah, Redcoats do a great job. But
Yeah, they
sometimes
do.
you got to pump in some rap music and let the play. I mean, that's what the players listen to in the locker room. Let them do their thing on the field.
Some Post Malone.
Yeah, I don't know.
Drake.
It's a different vibe.
I don't know. I think it comes down to the availability of the bars and the drinking scene downtown.
Yeah.
I just hope
that's a good
that at
point.
some point, like, since we are, in contention now, at least in my viewpoint, every year, like that, every game is people are staying.
Yeah.
Well, also, I mean,
think that's true. Winning cures everything.
Bryant Denny is known for being intimidating for sure, but I just know that Saban has come out and complained about their fans being spoiled and leaving as well and not being quite as into it.
Yeah.
So I think that can happen also is
Yeah.
getting so used to success.
Yeah.
And,
Pruitt did that too at UT's spring game. It didn't go over
well,
great.
that's Tennessee. They don't
Yeah.
have much to cheer about.
People didn't love that he had been there for like 3 weeks and was calling out basically the entire fan base for being terrible.
All right, guys. Well, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us again on this podcast of American Pylon. We look forward to having you back again next week, so be sure to tune in. Thanks a lot, and go Dogs.
Go Dogs.